People associate your brand with certain words in their brain. What is true of all people is that we crave human connection. It is your intention that makes attention valuable. I saw luxury leaders do things we can all learn from. Say, think like a concierge, not a bellhop.
Marketing like a symphony is a harmonious blend of instruments, but without the proper direction, it's just noise. Welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show, presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. Luxury is about experiences, not things. True luxury is about the moments that make someone feel seen and heard. Neen James explains the 5 luxury levers: entice, invite, excite, delight, and ignite. Now, here's your host and supply chain marketing guide, Ralph Henderson.
Opulent, lavish, sumptuous, deluxe, luxury. What do those have to do with supply chain marketing? Hi, I'm Ralph Henderson. I am the host and your guide for the Supply Chain Marketing Show, brought to you by Supply Chain Brain Media. And we're going to talk about luxury and marketing in the supply chain space today. You're going to be very excited because I wanted to make sure we got the person who knew this topic the best. And I scoured the planet and had to go to Australia. But finally, we have who I think is going to be able to get you to understand and maybe even apply some of the stuff we talk about today as it relates to supply chain marketing. I want to bring to you Neen James. Neen James is a leadership strategist. She's a dynamic keynote. Some would say dynamo or dynamite combined. I'll let you decide. She's the author of Folding Time, Attention Pays, and she's got an upcoming book, Exceptional Experiences. You're going to want to get this after you hear Neen talk about today, our topic. Look, Neen's got more energy than I do, and you guys know what that's like. So get ready, buckle up. She's very quick-witted. She talks to C-suites as well as people who manage. She is an influencer. She helps elevate your experience and your clients' and prospects' experiences. She's been appointed the World Luxury Chamber of Commerce to the World Luxury Chamber of Commerce, and she's been named one of the top 30 leadership speakers. She is fantastic on the platform. She has worked with some of the most prestigious brands out there like Viacom, Comcast, Four Seasons, even the FBI. Too bad we don't have time to talk about that, but another time. And look, she empowers people. She's inspiring. She's, like I said earlier, originally from Australia. She currently resides in one of my favorite places, which is Tampa, Florida. Welcome, Neen.
What a privilege. G'day, Ralph. It's always fun to be in your company. I'm going to take you with me wherever I go. You can just walk out and do that introduction for me. That would be fabulous.
It would be my pleasure, believe me. You and I have known each other for quite a few years now, and I've always appreciated how you present what you do. A lot of people talk about these topics, and in the supply chain space, what the Supply Chain Brain Media folks have decided that marketing is, whether right or wrong or good or bad, is we have branding, we have content development, we have lead generation, we have earned media, we have online strategies. If you put all of those things together, that's really marketing, because you need people to know who you are. You need content for people to trust you. You need earned media for people to feel like they can get information or news from you. You need to be online, obviously, and then you need to obviously address lead generation. And we're going to touch on some of those, but I wanted to make sure we establish that for the audience. So one of the ways I love to start these shows with is to ask you, what is your philosophy on branding? And is there a difference between a personal brand and a professional brand?
It's such a great question, and my answer is no. And let me explain why. I believe that the human shows up right? So you have humans that work for you. You are human as a leader. And, so often when I get off a keynote stage, people will say to me, they're like, oh my God, you're exactly the same on stage as you are on social media, as you are at the airport. So for me, when it comes to the brand of Neen James, she's the same person that shows up, whether she's working with an executive one-on-one or in front of 1,000 people in a ballroom. I think what happens is sometimes I think sometimes we may need to just tailor our messaging according to the audience. So, for example, part of my brand has become, and always for the longest time, is that I'm always in pink, and you always smile. But that was something that I like, the color pink, especially hot pink. I'm known for pink. And so that choice of what I would put my packaging, so to speak, became part of my brand. And so when I don't wear pink, people are like, oh, hold on, I didn't recognize you because you're not in pink. So what happens is people associate your brand with certain words in their brain. And so when you show up, you can either confirm that their brand perception of you is correct, or you have to adjust it. But understand, my clients are so diverse. I could be working with the CEO of a luxury travel company. I could be a government department in the basement of a not very beautiful building. But all I'm doing is tailoring. So when I think you're personal and you're professional, I think sometimes you might tone down or ramp up depending on the audience in which you serve. But if I had to be two different brands, oh, Ralph, I'd be exhausted. I think it's just easier as leaders if you decide this is the brand that I want to have in the world, and then have integrity in that brand so people have the consistency of that offering.
Yeah, you hit on a really good word, and that is integrity. And that is big in the supply chain space. And, one of the things I admire about you, Neen, is you've taken it to another level. So I'm a big fan of narrow niche, wide market. And you have taken the branding, in addition to the pink and being vivacious and outgoing, but you also have this luxury that you've attached to your brand. And when I first saw you and when I first heard that, it can be a little off-putting for people, right? I mean, because it's like, well, wait a second, what about, the average or the below average? And look, this show is not meant to be disrespectful or disparaging to anyone. But if you can work with somebody and you can work with the luxury versus the others, why wouldn't you? I think most of the time the answer is because you're A, not sure of yourself or your own solution, or B, not sure of your market and whether or not they'll receive that. So maybe talk to the audience a little bit about the idea behind the luxury. Where did that come from, and how is that working for you?
You can't tell this from obviously here, but I'm 4'10" and a half. I am Australian. I'm also an American citizen. I did become an American citizen. So I have the benefit of both a global perspective as an Aussie, but also a local perspective as an American. And this is important too, because I think when you think through all the different things in our body of work and as leaders, how we evolve, I was always known in my corporate day. And by the way, the clients I serve are global. They could be manufacturing plants, medical device companies, luxury hotels, private jets. So they're very diverse, the clients. But what is true of all people is that we crave human connection. And if you look at my body of work, you'll see that in my corporate life, I was very well known as someone who could get things done. Great project management, very, very productive. So when I started to get asked to speak about that expertise, that's when the evolution of Folding Time, one of my books, came out, because what I realized is you can't manage time, but you can manage your attention. And I became really focused on attention management. And then because I realized that, and I went very hard into it, I did a lot of research in it, and I was being asked by a lot of my executives to talk about it more. That's when I wrote Attention Pays, right? And that's about intentional attention. And I say in the book that it is your intention that makes attention valuable. And leaders understand this. It goes with integrity, just like you said. But what I realized was I was being invited to speak with so many executives. I work as a confidant to many CEOs and their teams. And what I realized is attention's about connection. And as I worked more and more in the luxury space, I saw luxury leaders do things we can all learn from. And when you think about that, I realized, well, luxury is also about attention. And right now in our digital AI world, we need human connection. Luxury brands understand this better than many of us. So what I did was I took all of my lessons from all of the luxury leadership that I work with, and then I created my own proprietary research study, the only one of its kind in the world, because I know people watching this, data is important to you. And so I couldn't just say, so luxury is mindset, okay? Because my executives would be like, Neen, on what planet are you? Like, I want to know evidence. How does this drive business? How does this really help us in the way that we are differentiating our brand? And that's why the research study. So if you look at my body of work, Ralph, you'll notice that it's always been about attention. It's always been about connection. And this book, Exceptional Experiences, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. You don't have to be a luxury product or service to provide a luxury level of service. It's just that luxury brands understand how to appeal to that ultra high net worth client, that top tier client. And in every business that's watching this, we have top tier clients and we have top tier leaders. What we need to do is to be able to speak the luxury language they need to hear. And as leaders, we sometimes need to learn that language ourselves.
No doubt about it. I mean, everybody watching and listening to this show, when I say the words Lincoln or Ritz-Carlton, right? I mean, they automatically associate luxury to that. And if you've had the opportunity to drive a Lincoln or stay at a Ritz, you know exactly what Neen's talking about. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is because I wanted to articulate exactly what you just said. It's like, look, you can be providing a solution that's for a manufacturing facility, for a distribution center, but it can still have a luxury approach and communication to it.
We'll be back after this brief message.
In today's complex supply chain, marketing has never been more critical. But are you leveraging the full potential of your marketing efforts? Supply Chain Brain Media created 2 resources to help you discover what's new and what works. The Supply Chain Marketing Group series is designed to educate you on services and how to implement them into your marketing program. On the Supply Chain Marketing Show, hear firsthand how experts are implementing the elements from the 5 rings of supply chain marketing to drive results. Ready to elevate your marketing game? Schedule a 30-minute consult today. Email Morgan at supplychainbrainmedia.com. Supply Chain Brain Media, your guide to marketing success.
And now back to our show.
Now let's talk about this, Neen, because in addition to you being a wonderful brand, you do quite a bit of business. So in the world I live in, we love branding, but we love lead generation more. It's almost like we love branding when we're buying and we love lead generation when we're selling. Help this audience reconcile why it's so important to really have both of those.
Let's go back to, you mentioned the Ritz-Carlton. I was so privileged to spend time with Mr. Hamler. Hervé Hamler is one of the founders of the Ritz-Carlton, and they have a beautiful phrase that has become part of what they've always done, and that's ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And while that may not be culturally as appropriate right now, we need to have a different kind of version for that. Everyone understood that they stood in service of everyone else. And that's the same true for us as leaders today. We have to get super clear on who we stand in service of. Who is that client? Who is that guest? Who is the person that we want as our client? Because once we know how we want to serve them, we have to tailor our experience for them. We have to understand what appeals to them, therefore brand. What are the messages that are going to resonate for them? It's only in that clarity can then we think, okay, I want to share this message, this brand with the world, and then attract those type of clients, capture their attention. In the book, in Exceptional Experiences, we have what we call the experience elevation model. And it's a framework that walks people through how do you capture the attention of the clients you want to work with, all the way through to helping them become advocates for your business. I think too often we see these as separate. Branding, lead generation, and they're not. They are very much intertwined, but there's a bigger question here, and that is, what is the experience you want that client, guest, member, student to have of you and your brand? And then you can reverse engineer that. You can say, well, if that's true, what do we need to do to get the attention of those people? Therefore, the lead generation can happen. And one of the things that I think we do is we don't do what I call systemized thoughtfulness enough. We have lots of processes in place, but we don't have systems of elevation. And what we want to think about is, luxury is a very divisive word. Some people hear luxury and they're like, oh, I'm not luxury. That's not for the everyday. But in actual fact, my research has shown that luxury is both inclusive and exclusive. It's inclusive, Ralph, because luxury is for everyone every day. It just looks different to some people. And it's exclusive because our clients want to feel like they're walking the red carpet with us. So every one of us has top tier red carpet experienced clients. We just have to get very, very clear on how do we best get their attention. And then once we have them as part of our company, as our organization, how do we elevate every experience, every touch point so they want to tell others about us? Because then they become the lead generators for us because they tell their friends, they speak about us, they become the advocates for our brand that we're looking for.
Yeah, no, you're so spot on. I mean, in the U.S., and since you're a citizen of both countries, I'll use both. In the U.S., we talk about solving the chicken and egg issue, and maybe in Australia, it's the kangaroo and the joey issue, right? It's like which one comes first. And I think what you're talking about, just like we talk about here, and it's not a mutually exclusive; it's a both and I think that's very important. I think one of the things that I liked about you, because again, being in this space when we met and being able to apply it with the clients that I work with, was what you were talking about on how don't think you have to be like this luxurious type of solution. What you want to do is you want to make the people you're working with feel like they are in a luxury experience because of how well you know what it is they're looking for, which is really, if you think about it, what these brands have done that have done it on the business consumer side. So you've done a great job in kind of giving us that, why is this important? Maybe we can dig a little deeper and talk about, what would I, as a supply chain marketing professional, what should I be thinking about? Or, what would be something that I might do based on your research that would help me in a business to business environment?
Think like a concierge, not a bellhop. Now think about it. If you've ever been to a hotel, you've seen the bellhop. They are vital. They are moving people in their bags through that lobby as fast as they can. They are all about efficiency and data, just like so many people who are thinking about the business that we're in, right? And a bellhop is vital. A bellhop moves bags, but a concierge creates moments. We go to the concierge because they're the most connected. They anticipate needs we didn't even know we had. And as leaders, what I'm going to invite you to do is stop thinking like a bellhop, crossing things off your list, running from one meeting to the next, worrying what's on your to-do list, thinking small. I want you to think like a concierge. What I would invite all of you to think about is, how do I anticipate needs my team didn't even know they had, my clients didn't even know they had, my community didn't even know they had? Because anticipation, that personalization and customization, when you combine those things, you surprise and you excite the clients that you want to work with. And those clients could be internal stakeholders, internal people, your internal clients, your team, your board, your leadership, your colleagues. And it can be external, the communities in which you're choosing to serve, those people you're trying to attract. So I would suggest start thinking like a concierge, not a bellhop.
I love that. And the way I'm going to help the folks watching and listening is you've been through what you're doing more than anyone else. This is another thing I think I kind of sometimes help encourage people. They think because they do it all the time, everybody's aware of it. And they're just not, right? I mean, if you're providing a solution for a distribution center that helps them in a certain way, and you've done that for any significant amount of time, then you actually know better than anyone what they're going through, what they're gonna go through, what's gonna happen. I'm reminded of a story where a company changed the way they did training. So they used to put the system in, as soon as they put it in, they would do a 3-day training and then they would leave. And that would be the end of it. The problem was the people who were using the system for the next 6 months didn't know what the hell they were doing. So what the company did was they changed it. They did a more modified training after they put it in. Then they came back a month later. Mm-hmm. And they did another 3-day training because now you've done enough to know what you don't know, but you haven't gotten so far down the road you've messed anything up really bad. And I got to tell you, their sales shot through the roof because when more and more people found out about this, even though that didn't feel like a luxury thing to them, it was a luxury thing to the people who were using their system. And it made them know they were going to be more confident, more profitable, more productive. So these are ideas that I want this audience to be thinking of. You know what that client's going to go through long before the client goes through it. So start thinking like this concierge, like Neen is talking about, and say, hey, what can we do in anticipation of what we know they're going through?
Maybe to add to that, Ralph, is think about what luxury is not. Luxury is not dragging your bag up the stairs. It's not waiting too long in the line before you get checked into your room or whatever it is. So perhaps what you could also think about is not just thinking like a concierge, but what are the conflict points that don't feel like luxury, the extra forms they have to fill out, the extra wait times. And so regardless of what industry you're in, I have been able to apply these luxury principles to hospitals, to manufacturers, to medical device companies, to fintech, like to so many different, very, very diverse things. And what we know is what doesn't feel like luxury. Remember, one of the things that came out of my research study that I think is fascinating, and you and I had talked about this in our pre-call, is that so often I think people associate luxury with the cars, the handbags, the jewelry. That's luxury. And here's what's interesting about my luxury research study. So I did a proprietary research study into luxury as a mindset because I wanted to know not how do people feel about luxury. That's great. There's plenty of studies on that. I wanted to know how do they think about luxury? How does it affect their decisions? How long does it take to make a decision? Who influences a decision? What price points require extra approval for decisions? I wanted to know, like so many of you watching this, the influences. How did luxury affect confidence, professional development, all of these things? That's what my study does. But here's what's interesting, Ralph. There's not one luxury mindset. There's 4. And so Ralph's going to share with you the notes of how you can get more information about all of those. But here's what's really key for you all to think about. One thing came out of the hundreds of people we surveyed, and that's this. Luxury is about experiences, not things. That experience people have of you as a leader, is it a high quality luxury experience? That experience they have when they call your team, is that a luxury experience? So to some, luxury is time. To others, it is attention, right? And so when you think about it, we need to learn how to speak the luxury language of the people we want to serve. And you have all 4 mindsets in your clientele, in your team. But as leaders, we have to get really good at thinking, how do I elevate this? And that's an action for each of us. How do I elevate this touch point? How do I elevate this process, this system, this conversation, this sales script, this piece of collateral? And if we're constantly asking ourselves, how do we elevate this? We will naturally provide a more luxury level of service.
Yeah, one of the themes that the Supply Chain Marketing Show continually articulates and communicates is, at the end of the day, we are doing business with people, right? It's not a building doing a business with another building, right? I mean, at some point there are people involved. And so what you're talking about, Neen, is making that front of mind and then making that person understand that you know what luxury means to them, whether it's attention, time, or something else as it relates to what you're doing for them. So maybe if you could just just encourage the folks on how to, better think about the fact that they are working with people on how they're growing their brand and making it feel or be that way for their prospects and their clients?
When you think about what luxury brands do well, they make you feel really special. It's a personalized experience. It is a customized experience. We can all do that through the simplicity of using people's names in the email or when we meet them. There are so many no-cost solutions to provide these opportunities. And here's what it's really about. I said that attention is about connection. Luxury is about the human connection, because what the book really does is helps brands make people feel seen, heard, and valued. That's human. And in our digital AI world right now, we are craving human connection. I am a big fan of AI. I love that it helps me be more efficient. I love the collaborative approaches. And gosh, in my lifetime, it's going to totally transform the way some things happen. And yet, it will never replace your experience, your expertise, your compassion, your empathy, your integrity as a leader. It will never, ever be able to provide the high quality, authentic, unique experience, maybe a little indulgent, that you as the leader can provide. And so what I want to encourage people watching this thinking about is, what is the way you can bring your best luxury experience, you as the luxury product and or service, as the brand, to elevate all of those interactions that you have so that people feel more seen and heard and valued in your presence, so that when they're reading your collaterals, your website, when you're working with people on the line, when you're working front of house, back of house, all of those people and all of those processes feel like a luxury experience for the end user.
Yeah, and I love how you brought it all the way back to the beginning. So we're talking about branding, and that's the obvious thing with Neen. But she's a researcher, and so she's done the research on what this stuff is and how it really works. So guess what that is? Content development. That gives her the credibility, right? Mm-hmm. She's obviously online. She does the marketing and what have you. Many people write about Neen. I mean, not just because she's 4'10" and a half. And you know how you know you're short, Neen, is when you use the half. Right.
Yes. Matters. Let's be super clear.
No, it does. Yes.
It does matter. But here's what I think is really interesting too, is the people who are watching this, there is something about you that people admire. They may not always tell you about it, but there's things you admire. There are words people use to describe you as a leader. That's your personal brand, right? That is how you're showing up in the world, the words people are using. What I think we need to be conscious of, Ralph, is when we show up in service of the world, when we stand in service of the people that we're committed to, right? We have to think about, how do they get my best work? How do they get the best version of me as a leader? Because when we think about that, it has that ripple effect across your team, across the plant, across the organization, and that then impacts the clients you're wanting to attract, the clients you're wanting to talk about. When it comes to content creation, I think people are like, oh, I don't know what to say. Then you know what? One of the things you've got to think about is people really listen and they lean in when you say something that resonates with them. There are so many people who talk about luxury and how it makes people feel. But like I said, I didn't want to know that. I wanted to know, how do we think about luxury? And because there was no research study, I paid lots and lots of money to have one done. So what you want to think about is, if you want to elevate your own level of thinking, who are you following? Who are the people? What are your inputs? And so things like this show, Supply Chain Brain and the Masters and all of the different programming, that input that you have access to, you want to make sure you're equipping yourself to be the leader you want to be, so you can provide that luxury level of knowledge to people around you as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. So listen, unfortunately, you and I could talk for quite a while on this, and it's always a pleasure being with you, and I look forward to it every time we get together. Let's do this. Let's try to crystallize, what do we want the audience to remember and what do we want them to do? Since we are talking about the supply chain marketing show, what's the memory hook and what's the call to action for this audience from Neen James?
Let's go back to think like a concierge, not a bellhop. I want to elevate all of your thinking. So it's anticipation, customization, and personalization. When it comes to what you can do, you can ask yourself the question I've been saying throughout our whole time together, and that is, how can I elevate this experience? If you want some practical strategies on how to do that, the book is filled with them with all kinds of examples. So what I want you to think about is think like a concierge, not a bellhop, and then ask yourself, how do I elevate everything?
That's perfect. And what I tell folks all the time, Neen, to wrap is as supply chain marketing professionals, our job is to knock on doors, to open doors, to get people to know who we are through all of this. But that's not our end all be all. Our ultimate job is, instead of knocking on doors, how about they knock on yours? Right? And so if we do what Neen's talking about, in addition to these other things, we'll have more people coming to us as well as us going to them. And with that, Neen, thank you again. I so much appreciate you. And for the rest of the audience, I look forward to the next 12 months being your best year ever.
To discover how you can blend your marketing instruments into a harmonious sound and rise above the noise, schedule a 30-minute consultative session. Email morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Again, that email address is morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. If you have any questions or episode suggestions, you can send those to morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Supply Chain Marketing Show, presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. This is an omni-channel production in conjunction with PWE Media.